Thank you, Marine Corps Band. Wow, that was great. That brought back a lot of memories for me, I gotta tell you. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Lake Forest Civic Center. I'm Tim Bruton, a member of the city's Community Services Commission, but more importantly tonight, I'm a proud retired Marine Corps colonel who flew 53s, helicopters, at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro. Hoorah! So we are here tonight to honor the legacy of the El Toro Marine Corps Air Station. In some ways, the Lake Forest Civic Center, this building we're in tonight, is part of that legacy. And so too are our guests, myself included, and I suspect many of you. We have some honored guests, many of whom we'll hear about tonight, but I'd like to introduce them now and thank them for being here. Retired Brigadier General Michael Aguilar, now the president of the Flying Leatherneck Museum. And retired Brigadier General David Shooter, a former base commander at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, who was the commander when I was flying. General, good to see you again. Hoorah. And retired Gunnery Sergeant Robert Pequeño. Over here. Sergeant Doug Serbo. And Lake Forest City Councilman Benjamin Yu, an Army veteran. Ben? I'd also like to shout out to the people in Texas that are live streaming in today all the way to the East Coast. Just want to say hello to them and welcome them to Lake Forest. In 1990, I left the city of El Toro to fly 53 helicopters in Operation Desert Storm. And when I returned in 1991, I returned to the newly incorporated city of Lake Forest. In conjunction with the round of base closures, my helicopter squadron was relocated to El Toro. And I'd like to give a shout out also to any 769 Roadhogs that may be attending tonight. Semper Fi, if you're here. And I also had the privilege to serve as the Marine Corps Air Station El Toro Base Realignment and Closure, or BRAC officer, from 1999 until the terrorist attacks of September 2001, when I was transferred back to Camp Pendleton in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and subsequently Operation Enduring Freedom. So El Toro is near and dear to many of us. As Marines and military service members, we are committed to the service of our country and often continue to serve in our communities. The legacy of Marine Corps Air Station El Toro lives on in these chambers, with these two Marines who are the sitting councilmen of Doug Serbo and Robert Pequeño. And now, council members Pequeño and Serbo will lead us in the flag salute and invocation.
Advance the colors. Thank you. I'm pleased to ask Kathleen Kuiman, the chaplain for the Orange County Sheriff's Department, to please come up and give the invocation.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting me tonight. Thank you to the City of Lake Forest. As a chaplain, if someone were to ask me what's right with America, I would say God. But you know what else is right with America? Marines. That's what's right with America. So please join with me asking God to bless them and their families, both the ones here, the ones that are serving, the ones who have served, and the ones that are no longer with us, but with the Lord. Heavenly God, we love you and thank you for our Marines, who they are, what they do, and their commitment to protecting America from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. They never stop serving, they never stop protecting, and they never leave anyone behind. Let your Holy Spirit fall upon our county, our city, our country, and most of all, dear God, let your Holy Spirit fall upon our Marines and their families. Many Marines came through El Toro base and deployed. Some came home and some did not. May we always remember them and their families in prayer and seek opportunities to honor them and say thank you. Dear God, bless all those who govern, all our dignitaries, our sheriff's department, all of our police departments, our fire departments, all our emergency responders, and all branches of our military. By your grace, may our citizenry respect them and each other, bringing peace to our hearts and communities. And in closing, Lord, we are grateful for your gift to America, our Marines. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Good evening again. My name is Doug Serbo, one of the city councilmen here in the city of Lake Forest and proud former Marine. And I don't know about you, but hearing a Marine band and the rich music that's filling the Performing Arts Center is something that just gives me goosebumps. And I just want to give the round of applause to our band members here. Thank you very much. This 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing Band is under the direction of Gunnery Sergeant Justin Grunes. And I don't know if you know this or not, but every Marine, including people in the band, they have a military occupational specialty where they go through boot camp just like every other Marine and then go through training and then get deployed to their duty station. We are really grateful that they made it up here. And when we were trying to put this whole thing together and remembering this 25th anniversary, I was talking to Jonathan Volsky, our PIO, and said, let's get the Marine Corps band, because guess what? I served in the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing Band from 1977 to 1981. It is such a joy to see all these young Marines, this next generation of musicians. Thank you so much. Please have a seat. Now, just to kind of give you a little background, well, how did I get to be in the Marine Corps? Well, I grew up in Colorado, and I had that spirit of patriotism and sense of duty, and I was reading Downbeat magazine one day, a little flyer pulled out, and I said, oh, you can be a Marine Corps musician? I wanted to continue my music because I've been playing since 4th grade saxophone. And I thought, here's a great way for me to serve my country and continue playing music. And so I auditioned, I went to boot camp, I went on to the School of Music in Norfolk, Virginia, graduated high in my class. There's 11 Marine Corps bands around the world at that time, and so I wanted to be as close to Colorado as possible, and I heard about the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing Band. I was kind of a jazz guy, so Swing with the Wing really kind of resonated with me, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, I also forgot, I was gonna have the gunny name that tune, see if we could all do, what's the name of that march? But that's years ago, but they still resonate. But, being in the Marine Corps band, just talking about some of the, the great things that they end up doing with change of command ceremonies, retirement ceremonies. When the Blue Angels were here, we played for the general for those events. We did recruiting efforts. We did military ceremonies when the president came to town. And it was just something that's very rich in terms of, being able to serve the country and can still continue to do what you love. And, I've got my dress blues back here on the table, the 37R that I can't really fit into any longer, but that's another story. But I still have that and all those rich memories and how much it meant to me to be able to, serve our country. And, today being able to have other veterans here with us to help celebrate this 25th anniversary of the closing of the Marine Corps Air Station El Toro is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. Thank you for all the veterans who have served this country so nobly and so honorably, and this is a salute to you as well here tonight to enjoy this. So I have so much gratitude for my time serving in the Marine Corps, and it's a great opportunity for us to get together here and to express that, tell stories. We probably should have a couple more hours. I've already heard some stories of some great ones that are out there. So thank you very much for being here tonight, and we're going to honor everybody during the course of the ceremony. Thank you so much. We have Congresswoman Young Kim. We have a representative, James Burant Nair. One of them, get right. He's back in the back room there. Give him a round of applause if you would, please. Congresswoman Young Kim is in Washington, D.C. She's just Senate representative. She's doing great work for us and incredible things going on right now in Washington. But we have a nice video from her office for us to be able to share now. Let's watch.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Young Kim, representative of California's 40th Congressional District. This is a special occasion as we commemorate the legacy of the Marine Corps Air Station El Toro and its profound impact on our community. Thank you to the City of Lake Forest for holding this event, and I'm honored to be joining so many who share a deep connection to this historic base. MCAS El Toro has a deep history beginning in the aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor and transforming nearly 5,000 acres of Lima Bean fields into a bustling hub of military activity. From its early days, this base drew Marines and their families from across the nation, becoming a cornerstone of our community and contributing to the growth of Orange County. The annual MCAS El Toro Air Show remains a cherished memory, with the Blue Angels captivating audiences and bringing our community together even after its closure in 1999. Tonight, we honor the men and women who dedicated themselves to MCAS El Toro, which includes 2 Lake Forest City Council members. We remember the sense of safety and pride we felt knowing the Marines were always close by. We cherish the stories of jets flying overhead, air shows that thrilled us, and the deep bonds formed within this community. I'm deeply moved by the stories shared by residents, from witnessing Air Force One landing to the camaraderie at Crook's Corner and the profound sense of home that El Toro instilled in all of us. These memories remind us of the base's lasting impact of our lives and Lake Forest identity. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Brigadier General Aguilar, President and CEO of the Flying Leatherneck Historical Foundation, for its dedication and leadership in establishing the new museum in Irvine. This museum will ensure that the history and legacy of MCAS El Toro continue to be honored and remembered. Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate the history and legacy of MCAS El Toro. Together, we honor the past, embrace the present, and look forward to the future of our beloved Lake Forest. It is really an honor and privilege to serve as your representative in the United States Congress. May God bless our veterans, our community, and the United States of America.
Thank you, Congresswoman Kim and James, for being here tonight to represent our office. One of the things I also wanted to mention is that so many of us that came here to El Toro decided to stay. And as I mentioned, I was here in 1977, and since we're honoring people, I just wanted to show you one other grateful thing that came as a result. And the very first date that I had with my wife, Kathy, of 41 years this September. Where are you, Kathy? Where are you, babe? Raise your hand. There she is. There's that picture. What a handsome dude he is there. Okay. Wish I could still fit into that uniform. All right. Okay, next we have Councilmember Pequeño, and he has some information for us on our next presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to keep it informal with Councilmember Serbo, so thank you, Doug. So who agrees with me that this is a small world? So my first unit in the Marine Corps, I was stationed 3 times at MCAS El Toro. The first time, I was with Marine Wing Helicopter Squadron -3. That's your squadron? Mush 3. Yeah, Mush 3. So that was my first squadron in 1984-85. After 6 months, I got transferred over to Tustin, was there for about 3 years, where I met my wife and decided that I wanted to stay here in El Toro. I re-enlisted and got a duty station preference, so I went to work for the Marine Corps Air Base Western Area, and my commanding general was General Shooter. What a small world, right? And so when I was at El Toro, I was the office that scheduled the air show, and I also scheduled UC-12Bs, or the King Air 200s, and the T-39 Saberliner. After that, I re-enlisted again. I went to recruiting duty in Santa Ana, California. They moved me really far away. And I did that for 3 years, came back to Tustin for a little bit, then we came back to here from 1993 to 1996, where Colonel Bruton was doing the BRAC, or the base realignment and closure. I went down and I left here in 1996 and ultimately retired in 2004. And it's my honor to present our next speaker. General Shooter served 3 tours in Vietnam, all as a helicopter pilot. He served as the presidential pilot with HMX-1 from 1973 to 1977, and was my commanding general at Marine Corps Air Base's Western Area from 1988 to 1990. Please welcome General Shooter. So it's customary that when you see another Marine, you give him a challenge coin. So I gave the general a challenge coin earlier. So
thank you very much. What a great crowd. Great looking crowd. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And to the city of Lake Forest, thank you very much for the invitation to have an old fart come and talk to everybody about history. We go back 82 years to the beginning of El Toro, and I will be giving you a number of dates. You can go to 2 different historic manuals or books and find different dates for the same event, actual same event. So if you hear something that you disagree with, just know that not everybody writes it the same way. And of course, with all the Marines here, and something that I'll say doesn't ring well, feel free to stand up and holler BS. Won't bother me. But I'm going to go back even further than the beginning of El Toro because it ties in to the beginning. Back in late 1800s, there was the Irvine Great Ranch. that was started by James Irvine the first. And then his son, James Irvine the second, inherited that. And the name El Toro, which there it was the Irvine Great Ranch or Great Park, 100,000 acres, originally of sheep, and then mostly beans, that James Irvine is who Lieutenant Colonel William Fox in 1942 came out here. He was directed by the Department of Defense to see if he could find a place for a Marine Corps base, air station, and for a Navy blimp base, which, as you know, became later Marine Corps Air Station Tustin. James Irvine had 100,000 acres, and as I said, it turned into mostly beans. And there was an airport that was started in the 20s by a gentleman named Eddie Martin, and that airport was right about where the 405 and the 55 intersect today. So this area was not new to airports or airplanes. The other thing, going back to 1896, is the name El Toro. There was an El Toro land and water company back then, and over time it changed its name. Was always El Toro, but there El Toro Water Department and some other names. So El Toro was not new. Lieutenant Colonel William Fox was directed, as I said, by the Defense Department to come out here and see if he could find a base. He met with James Irvine II. James Irvine offered him areas that were not bean fields. He didn't want to lose his bean fields. At a rent of $1 a year, he said to Colonel Fox, "You can have this area." Colonel Fox was not buying those areas because it was too close to housing and it was too close to the ocean, for an airport would have a lot of fog every day. So eventually they negotiated, and the Defense Department bought 4,000 acres at $100,000. 2,400 acres was El Toro, which, as many of you know, is pretty small, and it developed into 5,000 acres by 1999. Excuse me, and the other 1,600 acres was the Navy blimp base. So it's there were other reasons that Lieutenant Colonel Fox wanted to be here. It was close to the naval base in Long Beach. It was close to Camp Pendleton. And very important, it was close 60 miles, to San Clemente Island, which was a bombing range then, became a bombing range. So he noted that there was a railroad track, and he wanted a train depot near to the base. So this is what drove the decision to put El Toro where it was. 5 months later, Colonel Theodore Millard showed up to manage construction of El Toro. And in January of '43, 5 months of construction, they had 5 asphalt runways, they had barracks, and they had officer housing. This construction was not easy, but as you can imagine, in World War II, construction of anything for the military was probably 24/7, regardless of the weather. And the weather at that time was horrible. rain almost every day. So as they built the airfield and 5 runways, it was a mud hole. Also, while hot tarring the roof of what was to be a commissary, it burned to the ground, and they had to start that again. Also, the barracks, the buildings that they were building very fast, roofs leaked, they had water inside, they had to clean that out, and in many cases, restart the roofs. So this was not easy construction at all. In addition, during the construction of the runways, the Air Force had an emergency landing on a runway that wasn't even completely built, but it was successful. The Air Force soon learned a lot about El Toro, and as you will understand in a few minutes, they used it a lot. The dedication for El Toro was in April 1943. Now the patch that you saw there, the flying bull, that was designed by Disney, was presented to the Marine Corps before April of '43, and for some reason that I can't find out, the Marine Corps did not accept it for 8 months. And then they did accept it, so we still have the flying bull. The Department of Defense had a hard time making decisions back then in the 50s. So the plan for El Toro at that time was that it would be temporary and it would close at the end of World War II. However, in 1946, they decided it ought to be a permanent base. However, in 1950, they decided again that, 1950, they decided again it would be temporary. And then a couple years later, again, they changed to it will be a permanent base. So just a lot of indecision, which you could probably understand from the Defense Department. During World War II, El Toro was a major debarkation point, used a lot by the Air Force as a troop carrier in loading equipment from not just the Marine Corps, but from the Army, from Fort Irwin, since there was no other airport, airfield, air base near them. Was also a lot of Air Force B-24 bombers at El Toro that used the San Clemente bombing range. The first Marine Corps fighter was an F-4U, which was a single propeller fighter. That was shortly after the base opened. However, in 1948, the Marine Corps received here the first tactical jet, which was the F-80C Shooting Star, 1948. It was the first military production jet fighter for regardless Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. Then came Korea, and the F-9F Panther arrived. The Korean War was again a significant debarkation point for Army and Marines out of El Toro. Major airflow, airplanes everywhere. The runway length at that time was 5,000, just before Korea, 5,000 feet. However, it grew to 8,000 feet in 55, and in 59, the longest runway grew to 10,000 feet. That's just a little short of the longest runway at LAX, just to give you an idea of the importance that was placed on this airfield, particularly by the Air Force, by the large carriers, the large aircraft. In 1955, the 3rd Marine Air Wing moved here from Florida And that was a significant addition of personnel and equipment to El Toro. And then, of course, came Vietnam. Debarkation point again for many troops, again, Army and Marines going to Vietnam. And in 1965, an Air Force C-135 took off in very bad weather, very low ceiling, and crashed into Loma Ridge. I don't know whether you may not know where that is, whether it's even named Loma Ridge anymore, but it's only 6 miles northeast of El Toro. They had 84 personnel aboard, Marines and Air Force. They were all killed. That was 1965. That's the worst event, aircraft event out of El Toro in their history. There was also, starting during Vietnam, a lot of Air Force One activity, the presidential aircraft. President Johnson came twice during Vietnam to talk to soldiers and to Marines who were leaving for the war in Vietnam. And then, of course, in the 70s, Nixon was in and out. In the 80s, President Reagan was in and out. They both had homes in California, and this was a major base for them. And then Nixon's body was flown into El Toro in 94. I want to go back a little bit to 1976. The United States started a program where Vietnamese families who helped the U.S. during the Vietnam War, loyal, helpful, those families to come to the United States and become citizens. It was reported that as many as 50,000 came to the U.S. from Vietnam who accepted that program, to take advantage of that program. Many of those came to El Toro. And the biggest month of that was May of 1976. I don't know how many of you may have been around at that time, but that occurred. And then came Desert Storm, 1990. I guess we were without a war in the 80s, didn't know what to do then. But in 1990, Desert Storm, and again, many Marines and soldiers from Fort Irwin and their equipment debarked from El Toro. They would come in, C-140s, they would come in at dawn, take all day to load the equipment, take off at dusk, very low, very heavy, very noisy, right over Leisure World. I decided at that time, since I was commander of the base, that I would talk to Leisure World and apologize for the noise. I did that. And their reaction was, as long as it was military aircraft, that was fine. If it's commercial, we're going to fight it like hell. So that was, and I will bring that up a little later. The decision to close the base was made in 1994. At that time, we had 5,000 Marines on the base. So there, as you know, it took 5 years to close the base. But it wasn't the first closure. For 10 years, prior to 1989, for 10 years, the Defense Department had not closed a Marine Corps base. They closed Air Force and Army and Navy, but not Marine Corps. They needed to play. So I happened to be asked to be on a panel to help decide what Marine Corps air station should be closed. They picked on air, not ground. What Marine Corps air station should be closed? There was a group of 8 or 9 of us at headquarters Marine Corps. I voted for Marine Corps Air Station Kaneohe to close. The other 8 members voted for Marine Corps Air Station Tustin. The conjecture was that there were a lot of senior Marines at headquarters who liked having free vacations at Marine Corps Air Station Kaneohe. So keep that open, right? So that was a reason to close at Tustin. And again, it took quite a while. It took 10 years to close at Tustin. Just thinking about the aircraft that have been at the station, and I know many of you were involved in those at one time, starting again with the F-4U Corsair, which was a single prop driven fighter for World War II, and ended with the F-18, or I'm sorry, yeah, F-18. A total of 27 aircraft squadrons at El Toro. Some came and some went, of course, but over that period of time, there were 27 different squadrons. That doesn't count the headquarters squadrons or the supply squadrons. That was aircraft squadrons. During my tenure I want to talk about the air shows. During my tenure at ComCab West, 88 to 90, a commanding officer of an F-18 squadron named Jerry Caddick crashed on the base in the air show at the intersection of runways. Bad crash. The aircraft immediately caught fire. The crash crew got there quick enough to rescue him from the aircraft so that he survived. Badly injured, but he survived. 2 days later, I met with the crash crew to thank them for what they had done. And the crash crew truck was a mile away from where the accident was. And I said to the crash crew driver, "How did you get there so fast?" He said, "The Lord told me to move before that airplane ever crashed." I looked at the rest of the crash crew and they all nodded. That was right. I thought that was great. But just to, and you're going to hear a lot more about the museum from General Aguilar, but in the mid-'80s we started a museum with a few aircraft and artifacts, and in '99 moved those to Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. Following the closure, there was a move by the county, a thought by the county to move John Wayne Airport to El Toro. That was in year 2000. Again, I was asked to be on a panel to consider that. I mentioned two things to them. One is what I heard from Leisure World about fighting the commercial aircraft, and the other was the configuration of runways, which was two sets of parallel runways intersecting, and they were at 90 degrees to each other. You don't build a commercial airport that way today. That's an accident waiting to happen. Even if two of those runways are used for taxiways, that's an accident waiting to happen. County, whether that had anything to do with their decision, the county decided not to close. Last thing I would mention is after closure, while the city of Irvine was deconstructing parts of it, a Sunrise Aviation, which was a trainer company, made an emergency landing on the runway, even though half of it was gone. Made an emergency landing there. The FAA was not going to let them depart. They're going to have to cart that airplane off the base. This is 2007. But somehow they talked the FAA into letting them fly that aircraft off. So that covers a hell of a lot of time from the late 1800s, the name of El Toro and James Irvine, to 2007. And I'm sure that many of you can fill in a lot of blanks there, but I was only given 30 minutes So thank you very much, and much appreciated.
Thank you, General Shooter, for your service and your account of this legacy, the history that is so rich around here. And I just want to pick up, when I was in the Marine Corps Band, we actually played a couple of gigs over at Leisure World, and not to use a pun, but the spin zone back then was the presenter would say, "That's not the sound of noisy jets, that's the sound of freedom." And they all went, yeah, we're all for that. And so anyway, next we're going to have a slideshow that should bring back a lot of memories for everybody. And there's about the base when it operated from 1943 to 1999. The slideshow will actually be accompanied by our 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing Band. Here they are.
So the slideshow we just saw included photos of refugees from Saigon who first touched soil at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro to begin their lives here. Sadly, Marine Corps Air Station El Toro was also the last soil some touched before they left for Vietnam and other conflicts. With us tonight is Linda Hollingsworth, who will share the story of her father. Linda.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the City of Lake Forest and Jonathan for the wonderful invitation. On behalf of the families of the 72 Marines and 12 airmen who perished on June 25, 1965, I want to thank you for honoring and remembering them. I am the daughter of Lance Corporal Alfred Eugene Peterson. He was known as Freddie to his friends and family, and Pete to his fellow Marines. He was 20 years old. I never met my father. My parents were preparing for their wedding, set for June 26th, when my father received his orders. Their wedding date had to quickly be moved up to June 6th. They married. The following day, they left, moving my mother, Susan, from Indiana to Littleton, Massachusetts, to stay with my paternal grandparents until his return. They were married 19 short days. I am the product of their honeymoon. My mother has been so wonderful in always letting me know about these men and keeping me in touch with my family. The one the family most had questions about, there were no answers. And recently, in 2015, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the crash, and we were able to gather families together and visit the site, which was an unbelievable thing for all of us. These people were from across the country, and everyone felt that they were the only ones going through this. Of course, in today's society with everything, social media, we would all be in touch. So I've created a website page, or a Facebook page, where we're connecting. But being up on the site and knowing that these men are remembered has healed the hearts of our families. Most of the men were barely out of basic training. A few were returning for another tour, and they were just passing through. They were on their way to Okinawa and ultimately on to Vietnam. Although these men were from all over the country, El Toro will always hold a special place in my heart, as this was the last place these servicemen were. Tonight, we honor my father, the 83 others lost in Loma Ridge crash, all of the men from MCAS El Toro, and everywhere who sacrificed their lives serving our country. Semper Fi.
Thank you for that appreciation. There's so many stories of sacrifice that I'm sure in this room we could have hours to be able to testify. But it's all part of this family, this camaraderie that we all share. And we're thankful for those people that are serving, that have served, and those families that have endured the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. So again, thank you very much, Lisa. We've used the word legacy quite a bit tonight, and of course it's rich here in this area. And now we're going to have a presentation from Gail Ackerman, who is our Community Development Director, and she's going to give us some information about, why was El Toro such an important piece of how we've come to be Lake Forest now. So please welcome Gail Ackerman.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here tonight to share with you some of the history of the city of Lake Forest and how having the base as our neighbor to the north dramatically influenced development in the city and who we are today. South Orange County was once part of an 11,000-acre Spanish land grant known as Rancho Cañada de los Alisos. In 1889, a portion of the land was acquired by Dwight Whiting and a group of investors. Whiting's idea was to develop Los Alisos City between the 5 freeway and Muirlands as a farming community. The name was already taken, so the area was instead called El Toro. Whiting himself planted 400 acres of eucalyptus trees in hopes of using the timber for railroad ties. We can still find evidence of this early settlement in the community today. A number of historical structures are located in Heritage Hill Park. The eucalyptus forest planted by Whiting has become unique residential neighborhoods, and a few remaining eucalyptus windrows can be found along our arterial streets. MCS El Toro was established in 1943. The Marines' presence helped create a demand for housing, but the runway patterns created extreme noise contours and development restrictions that precluded the use of any of this land under the flight path for residential uses. The only land use that could be accommodated was commercial, industrial, or agriculture. Lacking infrastructure and regional transportation improvements, the land under the flight path remained vacant for decades. The development of South Orange County commenced in 1970s. Our neighbors to the north and south, Mission Viejo and Irvine, each had the benefit of a single landowner, and the cities were designed to become a full city. Lake Forest had a different development scenario. Individual parcels of land were sold to various entities, and each development had its own name and character. There was no vision to one day put these unrelated pieces together and form a city. There were no community-level facilities or amenities. These early planned communities were known as Lake Forest, Rancho Serrano, Serrano Highlands, Rancho de los Alisos, Foothill Ranch, and Portola Hills. 2 of the planned communities, Baker Ranch and Pacific Commerce Center, were sandwiched in the middle. They were heavily constrained by the flight path of the base, and a majority of the land continued to be used for citrus and avocados. Other uses included the Nicasi Nursery and the El Toro Materials sand and gravel mining operation. In 1991, the residents in the area voted to become a city, elected a council, and selected Lake Forest as the name for the new city. The city had a population of 58,000, with Kmart being the #1 employer. There were 4 baseball fields located in a flood-controlled basin, and when it rained, no one played ball. This was our largest park. Our first city hall was located in a strip mall and staffed with 9 employees. We would actually tell people, you can find us on Mercury Road. We're right in between the Boot Barn and the Pizza Palace. Soon after cityhood, work began on the city's first general plan, which is a blueprint for the future growth and development of the city. The land use plan clearly demonstrated the impact that the noise contours from the base had on the city. The red and purple areas on the map define the areas limited to commercial and industrial use. The aspirations of the new city were clearly expressed in the general plan, including goals of revitalizing aging commercial centers. Perhaps you remember the Saddleback Valley Plaza, the Kmart, Rod's Liquor, the Black Angus, just to name a few. Making necessary transportation improvements, in case you recall traveling on El Toro Road, where it could take you 30 minutes to go from Rockville to the freeway. The development of new parks and trail linkages to address really significant deficiencies, and the desire for a community center, as well as needed aesthetic improvements throughout the city. So in 1993, the country was mired in a deep economic recession. The announcement of the base closure literally rocked Orange County. In an effort to boost economic development in the region, the county immediately began planning to convert MCAS El Toro to a massive international airport. A political firestorm ensued and became one of the most hotly debated issues in the history of Orange County. South County cities bonded together and launched an extraordinary grassroots effort to stop the airport. The battle raged on for 9 years. Ultimately, Orange County voters rejected the airport and backed a new plan for the Great Park and residential uses to be built at the former base, all within the city of Irvine. So with the land use at the base finally settled and the land use restrictions that had been in place for 50 years set to be removed, landowners of the vacant parcels in the city of Lake Forest approached the city council with a desire to build new residential communities, and thus began a planning process that was dubbed the Opportunity Study, or the OSA. The city launched community outreach efforts and started extensive environmental analysis to determine the best use of the land. So the city council established clear objectives of what a land use change would need to address, including reducing traffic, maintaining a fiscal balance, including master plan communities and the expansion of parks and open space. And most importantly, any land use change must provide for public benefits to existing and future residents of Lake Forest by sharing in the increased land values that would result in a land use change under the former property. The public benefits identified included a 40-acre sports park, a recreation center, and a civic center with a city hall, a community center, a senior center, a performing arts venue, and new city council chambers. Of course, the landowners wanted to know what these new facilities would cost, so in 2006, the city prepared preliminary design plans and cost estimates for these required facilities. The council initially approved changes to the general plan to allow 5 new communities under the flight path, as well as development agreements to ensure the funding of the new facilities and to provide landowners with the assurance that their properties could be developed. The new communities contained approximately 5,000 units and were named Whistler Ridge Baker Ranch, Portola Center, Serrano Summit, which you all saw this evening, and the Pinnacle. So now it was time to put rubber on the road. We had plans, cost estimates, a funding structure, but we needed a location for the sports park and civic center. The landowners began preparing precise development plans for each new community, but were reluctant to host the sports park due to the vast acreage that would be required. So the city identified 9 potential locations for the sports park and civic center. And after years of negotiation, the sports park landed at the intersection of Portola and Rancho Parkways. 86 acres of land were assembled from the County of Orange, the Baker family, and a portion of the sand and gravel mining operation. So just a little inside information here. In 2006, we didn't use sophisticated planning tools like GIS or AI, but we did have this unique tool that we used. And it is a Rubik's Cube. I still have this in my office. And going around here, a number of properties, a number of environmental constraints, resource agency requirements. And for years, we worked this cube until we could find a solution. And that put the sports park on that county property that we acquired through a land exchange with one of the developers, and just an incredible effort to find that location. So 6 years later, everything seems to take a long time. 6 10-year increments. 6 years later, the Lake Forest Sports Park was completed. This facility included 56 acres of active park, including 10 sports fields, a massive lawn known as the Commons, that we host community events and concerts, 10 sports fields, picnic shelters, playgrounds, a 27,000 square foot recreation center. In addition, the project includes 30 acres of restored habitat and a connection to Aliso Creek Trail. This is certainly an incredible facility for our residents, which was funded by our OSA partners. So we had been working with these landowners literally for 10 years and meeting with them every week, huge teams. They all brought attorneys and financing specialists, and we used a huge conference room to host all these people. And really after 10 years, we really did form a partnership with them, and it made for a good cooperative working relationship. We were both trying to achieve the same thing. So in 2014, the economy roared back to life. Home building commenced in the initial 5 communities. The council approved additional plans for development of the Nicosi Nursery and the remaining portions of the sand and gravel operation. Serrano Summit provided the land for the Civic Center. However, permitting issues with agencies posed challenges and delayed the project again for several years. Finally, in 2019, the Lake Forest Civic Center opened. This includes our senior center that's directly across the way here, the community center, this beautiful performing arts venue, and in total, our OSA partners contributed $175 million to fund these facilities. In 2020, the city approved a new general plan to guide our development for the next 20 years, having accomplished the goals that were set forth in that original 1994 plan. So here we are, 30 years after the base closure was announced. The closure of the base allowed for a process that transformed Lake Forest. Lake Forest gained nearly 6,500 new residential units, included needed affordable housing. $175 million in fees were paid by the landowners with no special taxes placed on city residents. We remain a fiscally strong community. We got important transportation improvements, including the completion of Alton and Rancho Parkways. We have additional trails and open space. Of course, the sports park and recreation center, as well as our beautiful civic center site. But I think most importantly, the new development under the former flight path has closed the great divide that we inherited upon incorporation and allowed us to knit together our communities to create the city of Lake Forest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gail. I know you laughed when she showed you the Rubik's Cube. To be quite honest, I have a crazy 8-ball to make my decisions on council nights. So while we're here tonight to honor the legacy of Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, there's a group working diligently to ensure it's never forgotten and that it will be shared with generations to come. Brigadier General Aguilar has been given that task. Michael Aguilar was born in Los Angeles, left Long Beach College in 1971 to begin his active duty as a second lieutenant. He has accumulated nearly 4,000 accident-free flight hours in the H-1, UH-1E Huey, and the AH-1J Cobra attack helicopters. He served as officer in charge of a Cobra detachment and has held a variety of jobs at aviation squadrons, groups, and wing levels. His last posting was as Deputy Commander of U.S. Marine Forces South, based in Miami. Lucky. And Commanding General of the Fleet Marine Forces South. He is now President of the Flying Leatherneck Aviation Museum being built in the Great Park in Irvine. It is my honor to introduce General Aguilar.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And before I get started, I want to point out something that wasn't shared with this great band. And Gunny, it may not be completely accurate, so please don't correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing Band was recently selected as the best band, military band in the United States, but let's say the world. Why hold it back? And as Doug mentioned, every Marine first is a rifleman, and every band member is, in fact, a rifleman. When they're called to follow others' parts of the Marine Corps to combat, they serve as riflemen. So not only are they great musicians, but watch out, they're also great shots. Okay, it's my pleasure to talk about the Flying Leatherneck Historical Foundation and the Flying Leatherneck Aviation Museum. I'm going to show you just a couple of videos. That way I don't have to work or compete with General Shooter's brilliant presentation. You can just look at the videos we're going to show. But there will be two of them. The first one will talk a little bit about the history of the Flying Leatherneck Aviation Museum, which was started, as mentioned by General Shooter, here in 1989 at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro. But because of base closure, it had to move, along with the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, back or down to Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, where it operated for 21 years. It was at El Toro and at Miramar what we call a command museum, meaning that the sponsoring command, El Toro or Miramar, the commanding officer or general, was responsible for the financial support of that facility, along with the foundation's augmented funds. Unfortunately, in 2021, the commanding officer of Miramar decided that he didn't have enough funds to operate the museum, and he decided to close it. Fortunately for the museum, we were contacted by the city of Irvine, who is in the process of their development of the Great Park framework, which included an aviation museum. So they contacted us and asked if we would be willing to work with them to enter a partnership with the Marine Corps, the city, and the Historical Foundation to return the Flying Leatherneck Aviation Museum to its original home at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, now called Great Park. Don't tell this Irvine City Council this, but we still call it El Toro and not Great Park. Okay, with that then, we'll start the first film, the first video, which will tell a little bit of history about the museum, where it was founded. And the second video will share with you what we are doing, the process we're in to bring the museum back to El Toro. First video, please.
Hurrah!
So we hope our museum is going to be a little unique. In addition to honoring or being the only aviation museum that honors the history and legacy of Marine Corps aviation, we feel it's important to, in our mission, to emphasize and hopefully create a new spirit of patriotism, appreciation of our country, and more importantly, an interest in our youth in the science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines. We believe in order for the nation to maintain its economic global position in the world, that we have our own homegrown scientists and engineers. So we're hoping our displays will hopefully inspire our youth to pursue those disciplines. Our displays are going to be a little bit different than those that you might see in other museums. A lot of museums are displays, old stuff, with just technical information where old guys like us in the audience like to go up and read about. And of course, your grandchild standing next to you, wiggling, going, Daddy, Grandpa, I want to go play. So we're hoping our exhibits and displays will be more than just static displays. They're going to be very immersive, experiential type of displays, and some of them hands-on. I'm going to, as an example, share with you two of them that were up there. The first one was, you saw the ejection seat display. In that, we have 8 ejection seats, and of course, emphasizing the engineering and design that goes behind the ejection seat and the ejection sequence. We're going to tell how that works. But there's 2 other things that we feel is important after the ejection seat sequence. What happens to the human body once it enters an airstream of around 350 knots? Not good things. So we are going to, after the engineering and design and the sequencing of the ejection seat, talk about the physiological impact on the human body, hoping just to stir a little interest maybe of someone in medicine. The next thing then is going to be, well, once you get in Badman's country, Badlands, what do? How do you get home? You pull out your iPhone and you put in, send me home, Alexa. Well, of course, if you're in enemy territory, you can't do that. And of course, you won't have, if you know what it is, a Thomas map. So what we're going to do in this, the third part of this display, we're going to have what we call in the civilian world orienteering. In the military, it's escape and evasion. But we're going to give a map, an opportunity for a youngster to have a map, choose the period of time that they would like to try to fly in, give them their survival gear, and tell them, read the map and get home. So that's an example of some of the things we're going to do with ours. There's also a display in there that you may have seen, the CH-46, the tandem rotor aircraft. That's our most significant, historically significant aircraft we have in our collection. When you fly around, in addition to having your own personal call sign, mine was El Jefe, for obvious reasons. I'm tall and good looking and the boss. Every squadron has a call sign also that they fly around with, so you know, the command and control individuals know who's flying around in that aircraft, and they go by their side numbers. So that CH-46 belonged to HMM 165. It was Lady Ace, their call sign 09. It's the actual helicopter that flew the American ambassador and American flag out of Vietnam in 1975. So it's a significant historical aircraft. But here's the interesting part about that aircraft. We are partnered with our exhibit and design firm, Sightline Productions, right here in Orange County. And the lead designer of that exhibit is Viet, a Vietnamese refugee who actually flew out of Vietnam on top of the CIA building in the background, and he's designed that. So for me, anyway, I think it's a very special story. Not only, as was mentioned, many Americans' last footprint was on El Toro, but our newest Americans came from Vietnam, and Viet was one of them, and he says he's honoring, as a new American citizen, everything this country has provided him. So I think it's a great exhibit, and I'm very proud to have that one here. So what's it take to move now 41 aircraft down the Interstate 5? Well, first of all, you got to pay off the CHP. so they don't give you a bad. No, actually, we've had a great time in support from the CHP. Another interesting story. We were very concerned going through scales as you're coming up from San Diego. Gosh, we're going to get, fined, going to give us a hard time. And sure enough, the first aircraft we go down, they pull us off to the side. We go, here it comes, the big ticket. And of course, the officer comes out and he goes, where are you going? A few questions. He goes, hold on, runs into the office, a little shack, brings out around 10 of his buddies. And what do? They're all taking pictures in front of the aircraft. After the photo op, they all go down back to the office and they say, get out of here. So they've been very supportive. But we've had an exciting time on moving around 38 of our 41 aircraft down the freeway. We're going to start the transportation again this Thursday with another parade of the remaining 12 aircraft that we have. In addition to those 41 aircraft, the slide said 40, but we just recently acquired our first new addition, an AH-1W Whiskey Cobra, the type of aircraft I flew. And in fact, we also have an AH-1J model. It's an older model in the collection. I actually have flight time in that aircraft, so it's appropriate that both the aircraft and I are ending up in this museum. Anyway, we're going to start that up once again. But in addition to the 41 aircraft, we have had to transfer a huge number of other artifacts ranging from large engines, a lot of ground equipment, and of course all the micro artifacts. We have a lot of uniforms, patches, and flight equipment. So all that has come up with the help of Fred Smith, a great Marine who started FedEx. And Fred Smith, in addition to making a significant monetary contribution, donated 17 of his FedEx trucks to move all the non-aircraft artifacts down for us. So a good applause for FedEx. We're in the process right now of, we aren't going to completely restore the aircraft. When you think restoration, you think of making flyable. Ours will all be static display. So we are in the process of preserving and conserving the aircraft right now. They're now, in partnering with the city, we are occupying hangar 297, which is an old KC-130 Raider Country hangar at Great Park, El Toro. And that's where we're going to do our storage and our restoration and preservation of the aircraft and the other artifacts while we build the new museum. The museum is, the ground preparation is underway right now. The city will have that completed by the end of this year, and we're hoping to start construction of a pre-engineered metal building January of next year, with a target date of opening the first quarter of 2026. So what I'm going to share with you now is just a short video of what it takes to move, at least the beginning, of 41 aircraft and a bunch of little artifacts down the freeway. Next video, please. So that's just the beginning. I would ask if you're interested in supporting us. We're only short of three things: money, money, and more money. So we have a little booth out there. Please stop by, look at the flyer. You'll see that we have a display of how the aircraft will, a diagram of how the aircraft will all be displayed. It's art. We're just thrilled. The Flying Leatherneck Historical Foundation is just thrilled to come back home to El Toro. And I'm pleased to announce and let you know the Marines have landed and the situation is well in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, General Aguilar, and also General Shooter. We're grateful for your presence tonight, your presentation, your patriotism, your service to our great nation, and your leadership at the highest levels of the Marine Corps in support of the mission of readiness for our freedom. Thank you once again, Generals. Thank you so much. I just got to know, we have to clear something up. There's some confusion or some controversy. And even though I've been out of the Marine Corps for 40 years, and sometimes it bothers my wife when I do this, but there's people who don't really understand the Semper Fidelis, always faithful motto, and also the kind of the cry of enthusiasm that we have as Marines. And some other services, I'm not trying to bag on them, but they're like an owl who's resting. They go, hoo-ah. No, it's not hoo-ah. We spell it O-O-O-H-R-A-A-H, and I'd love to do it. So I'm going to step away from the microphone, and this is how only Marines know how to do this. It goes, ow! All right, let me hear it, band. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right, I love that. All right. Councilman Pequeño.
All right, I'd also thank you, Generals, for coming again, but I also want to thank Jonathan Volsky. Big round of applause. Yeah, he was the muscle behind tonight. I mean, he contacted everybody, but this happened tonight because of Jonathan. Thank you. Thank Max and Weil up there, Max back there, but thank you all. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to bring up Colonel Bruton to finish this off.
Oh, thank you for a wonderful event. Lake Forest really does it right in remembering the legacy of El Toro. And for interested researchers and historians, the Marine Corps Air Station El Toro Oral History Project, in collaboration with the Orange County Great Park Corporation, conducted over 500 oral history interviews between 2007 and 2015. There are many other holdings are housed at the Lawrence DeGraff Center for Oral and Public History at Cal State Fullerton Library. And they've also digitized quite a bit. So if you go online, you can look that up at the Lawrence DeGraff Center. And as we depart this evening, I would like to mention something on a personal note, that I was honored to have flown in the last flight out of El Toro. We flew our helicopters out up to we ended up going to Edwards Air Force Base. But it's been an honor. That was an honor. It's been an honor to be here tonight as well, commemorating the legacy of El Toro. And thank you, General Shooter and Aguilar, Gunny Gruens, the 3rd Mile Band, and Representative Kim's office, James Berangier. Sorry, I messed that all up. And outside we have the Saddleback Historical Society, the Patriots and Paws. They brought the helicopter that's on display out there. And of course, the Leatherneck Museum and other participants in this evening's event. So right now, as you leave, make sure to stop at the display, like General Aguilar invited you to the Leatherneck Museum display and whatnot. And the 3rd Mile Band is going to close us out. And we just like to have the Marines stick around for a little while for a special tribute. Gunny?